Fam, art can get really dark sometimes. And sometimes it gets so dark that you end up influencing music and metal and hardcore culture for the rest of eternity. And, you know, I'm talking about someone in specific. Someone named, how do I even say his name? I can't even say it right now. Zdzisław Beksiński. This guy is the godfather of creepy, horrible, twisted art. So in this video, we're going to watch it, get a peek into his mind, and kind of see how dark this rabbit hole gets. I mean, but he low-key kind of looks like the Death Cab for Cutie lead singer. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Doesn't he kind of look like the Death Cab singer? Like he's trying to possess not just your heart. You know what I'm saying?
This is a photograph by Zdzisław Beksiński. Over the course of a 50-year career in art, he would materialize dreams and nightmares onto canvas and celluloid, bring a global eye to Polish art, and would help to define modern heavy metal aesthetic. His birthplace, Sanok, had one of the largest populations of Jewish people in all of Poland in the lead up to World War II. Roughly 30% of the city, and in 1940, the Zaslav concentration camp was created just on the outskirts, and would remain functional for the next 3 years.
So, just real quick, because I know I was talking, so you guys might have gotten a little confused there. Zdzisław Beksiński grew up in Germany as a non-Jew. Hold up, sorry. I want to rewind because I want you guys to catch this, guys, because this is the setup for his entire life. He grew up in Germany as a non-Jew, seeing what the Germans did to Jews. Imagine living that life, and this is during Nazi Germany time. Imagine that life. Imagine the horrors you would see. But let me just rewind a little bit because I want you guys to take that in.
His birthplace, Sanok, had one of the largest populations of Jewish people in all of Poland in the lead up to World War II. Roughly
Poland, not Germany, but still, you get what I'm saying.
30% of the city, and in 1940, the Zaslav concentration camp was created just on the outskirts, and would remain functional for the next 3 years.
Bruv. So in his city that is 30% Jewish in Poland, there's literally a concentration camp outside of it. Bruv.
In the aftermath of the war, Beksiński would begin to photograph the world that he saw around him during the Soviet occupation of his country. And it is undeniable that the horrors he experienced through his entire adolescence.
No big deal. Let's just go play with some mortar or tank shells today, kids. Jesus. Hey, Jimmy, why don't you go outside and play with some M16s, all right? Don't bother me until it gets dark out.
Would later play a massive role in the mindset of his works that he would go on to create. Although not formally trained in art, in 1955 he would study architecture and develop drafting skills through that would later help him in more than one way. Because as well as training his hand, he would also learn the history and symbolism of architecture that would allow him to make social commentary through his paintings. After finishing his education, he would return home to Sanok and would design buses for a construction company called Autosan. But during this time, he would continue to experiment more with his photography.
That's random. Goes to school, comes back and designs buses.
Incorporating objects that he found at the construction site into the pictures that he took, and decided as a side project to his career that he would become a part-time photographer. And it was here, in 1957, that Beksiński immediately disrupted the art world with his earliest works of photography. The philosophical idea behind photography at the time was that of straight photography or pure photography, and the likes of artists
I just love that switch up. I just love the switch up. That's all I'm saying. I appreciate it.
such as Paul Strand, Edward Weston, and Ansel Adams.
Here we are with Ansel Adams taking photos of mountains, and this guy's over here dealing with concentration camps outside of his town. Jesus.
In which the objective of the photographer was to use the camera.
It's like America, the rest of the world, America. We're just like, let's take some pretty landscape photos. Beksiński's like, no. We're going to take some dark shit today, boy. Oh, I need some better sound effects. But anyways, you can hit it.
Walkie slash.
To create as sharp an image as possible of the subject, using light to demonstrate every natural texture available. This style was born out of a rejection of pictorialism, which was the reigning style of art photography in the early 1900s, wherein the photographer would try to capture life in a hazy, obscure way, similar to that of the Impressionist painters. Pure photography stood against this staged false idea of life that the pictorialists created within their work, and tried to present objects as they truly were, rather than how a romantic would see them. And so when Beksiński unveiled his photograph, Sadist's Corset, in 1957.
Bruv.
There was an immediate backlash to its stylized, posed nature that rejected the traditional nude, facing the figure away from the camera, cropping out the head and legs in a very non-sexual, rigid, standing position. Photography critic Alfred Lagoki publicly criticized the
Yo, I don't even see that kind of shit today.
photograph, saying that surrealist photography should not be acknowledged because of its direct
Damn! Just not even acknowledge the dude.
interference with the photographed subject on the part of the photographer, that it didn't properly represent the subject as it really was, claiming that Beksiński's work was anti-photography. Beksiński then
So just in case you guys didn't catch it, essentially there was a thought of how photography should be approached, and Beksiński is taking all of his skeletons in a closet and putting it into his photography, calling it surreal photography, breaking pictorialism, which is true photography, and Beksiński is just completely destroying people's narrative of what photography should be. So he's kind of a gangster.
responded to this publicly in Photography magazine with an article titled "The Crisis of Photography and the Perspective to Overcome It," saying that the pervasive style of pure photography didn't allow for artistic expression, and that the medium should grant that to an artist to make an artistic statement if the artist wants to do that. And this philosophy is something that you can see in all of his early photographic works. The subjects are all manipulated, directed, and posed in very specific ways, and were always obscured in some fashion. An out-of-focus chair in the foreground segments the subject of Sada's corset into pieces. Here mirrors disrupt the natural symmetry of the body, subjects are cropped, photographed as silhouettes, purposefully shown out of focus, and shadows make faces ambiguous and confusing to look at.
So sick.
By the time of the early 1960s, even though he was a renowned photographer,
I sounded like a teacher. Yo, chill. Like I said, this is art school for hipsters.
he quit working within the medium entirely and donated all of his photographs to the Historical Museum in Sonic, stating that he had nothing else to say through that art form, and that it limited his imagination. And even though Beksiński today is known entirely for his paintings, you can see here in his photographic works of the 1950s the formation of what would go on to be his trademark existential style. From the beginning of the 1960s to the mid-1980s,
Bruv. This looks like a job for a cowboy album cover. This is crazy. Yo, this guy's the biggest artistic gangster I've ever seen. He straight up flips the art world on its head, where people are really publishing articles about like, yo, this dude's so dark. Oh my god, it's not straight photography. And then he straight up shits on photography, and he goes, yo, he's like, it's too limiting. I need to like paint now, so I could really show you what's buried deep inside my dark soul. God dang, Beksiński.
Would you not eat my pants? Ah!
Beksiński would enter the era of his career that he would become most known for with the Fantastic series, which melded architecture, spiritualism, eroticism, war, and dream logic into a series of hellscape paintings. Every work of art created by Beksiński was untitled. He didn't like the concept of titling art because of the possibility of creating a misconstrued meaning
Jesus, does he need more light in his studio? God dang.
or perceived interpretation of the work from the artist to the audience. He explained in a 2002 interview that in his opinion, interpretation is imposed by others. Speaking immodestly, paintings are to be admired or contemplated. Admired without asking what it means. If I had something to say, I would write it down or say it. I don't need painting for that. In fact, he didn't really like the concept of interpreting the work at all.
Where does this guy pull this from? Like, humans are so fascinating. Like, where does he pull this from? Like, who thinks of this stuff?
And wanted the paintings to just stand on their own as paintings, and would even get upset with critics who tried to come up with a simple answer for what his work meant.
Bruv. Like, who thinks of this? Like, this is why...
Saying also at one point that meaning is meaningless to me. I do not
Alright, that's some hipster ass shit right there.
care for symbolism, and I paint what I paint without meditating on a story.
Meaning is meaningless to me. I paint what I paint without meditating on a story. Yes. A little pretentious.
So I'm not going to try and do that here, and offer up some grand thesis of what his body of work means as a whole. I think he is probably correct in saying that his work is so diverse, and that each individual painting is too complex for me or anyone else to do that well. But despite his wishes, I will go so far as to say that there are common similarities in many works from him that make it difficult for me to not think of his life and the political climate that he grew up in when viewing his paintings from this time.
Of course, dude! These are his dead homies. Bro, this is crazy. Like, have any of you guys ever seen Beksiński in an art gallery? I never have. Like, I feel like they would not show this. This guy's got some demons, man.
Almost every single one of this set feels like him confronting something very personal that he must have seen or experienced in his youth, as he also explores concepts that obviously captivated and haunted him. And so here I would like to take some time to discuss what I see as the most common themes within his work. His experiences growing up in World War II obviously affected him deeply.
Bruv, what is that? But bruv, this is crazy.
Experiences growing up in World War II obviously affected him deeply, and is the most reoccurring topic that I see in his paintings. Here, an ugly red creature conceals itself behind the facade of elegant Greco-Roman architecture. War helmets are a constant reoccurring image, such as here where individuals ride one, dragging a body behind them. Burning buildings, destruction, and chaos reigns in his worlds, and I think the color blue is significant in these scenes. If you aren't aware, the color...
Yo, you guys aren't ready for this shit. Yo, guys, I have seen this video before, but I want to show you guys because now that we have a lot more people watching, this is one of my favorite videos about Beksiński. Guys, what this guy's about to say about Prussian blue hue is going to... You know what? Never mind. I'm not even going to say it. Let's just watch it.
The color Prussian blue is named after the prussic acid that is used to produce that color in paint. Prussic acid is also known as hydrogen cyanide. And while the paint itself today is not toxic despite being created with a form of cyanide, other products made from it, such as the pesticide Zyklon B, that would be used by the Germans in gas chambers during World War II, are extremely deadly, and are known under certain circumstances depending on iron and pH levels as well as humidity to leave a blue residue on surfaces that are in frequent contact with the substance, that is chemically identical to that paint. There are two paintings in particular that
Did you guys catch that? Did you guys catch that? This guy, back when he was using Prussian blue, or the color Prussian blue was formulated, you can only get that color essentially by combining certain chemicals that get Prussian blue, but in those chemicals were chemicals used in the gas chambers in the Holocaust. Five-head stuff, dude. Bruh.
I believe Beksiński is referencing this in. Here, where a figure reminiscent of common depictions of death, shrouded in Prussian blue, watches as a train of carts covered in religious symbols carries emaciated figures away, who are packed together tightly. As well as here, where possibly the same figure hovers over a child in a cradle, while a man is eaten alive by birds behind him.
Jesus, Beksiński. Like, what do you think he did after he was done painting this painting? Like, you think he just, like, went and watched television or something? Like, what? I mean, that blue pops. Like, that blue pops. But look at this skeleton behind. That is some dark stuff. The thing is, like, straight up... Oh, God. Okay, let's go.
The words, in hoc signo vinces, is carved into the wall, a Latin phrase meaning, in this sign, thou shalt conquer. It is also relevant, I think, to note that this phrase was a common popular slogan used by the American Nazi Party. The human body is the...
Did he say the American Nazi Party?
...subject of almost every Beksiński work. And like most themes within his work, they tend to blend together into one common core of nihilism. His portrayal of thin bodies is very much in my mind tied to the war, and they are also often presented with religious symbols, which themselves are also always shown with destruction tying back into war, in a constant recycling collision of...
I need like 10 minutes to look at each of these photos. Holy crap.
...conflicting ideas. He painted hundreds of images in his life.
Yo, like, that is beautiful. I know it's dark, but that is beautiful.
And to me, they are each individually small pieces of a larger single Hobbesian statement on human nature. The bodies of Beksiński's paintings are never normal, and are almost always blending into something else, stretching and obscuring the original form. Many bodies form a new creature, faces bloom into nature, buildings are constructed out of bodies, Notre Dame is made of flesh. Numbers are tattooed or carved into people, a man turns into a building, and a torso into a chair.
Bruh.
With these last few possibly being a critique of the victims of the Germans being turned into household objects, such as soap or lampshades.
Wait, what? Was that a thing? Wait, time out. Whoa, that just really creeped me out.
Into a chair. With these last few possibly being a critique of the victims of the Germans being turned into household objects, such as soap or lampshades.
Yo, what? Holocaust victims turned into objects? Lampshades made from human skin? Soap made from human corpses? What? Oh my god, I'm totally gonna get banned. Some human remains at Buchenwald, including a lampshade allegedly made of human skin. Oh my god. Bruv.
Each person depicted is a parody of life, with the only common element being that they are always thinner.
How you guys feeling? You feeling pretty comfortable, huh? Art's crazy.
Than they should be. A corpse plays the violin, a ruined dancer poses, the faces shift this way and that way, until the argument could be made that they are no longer faces at all. They are usually cropped or segmented into pieces, positioned in almost natural ways, and yet somehow entirely unnatural at the same time.
Whoa.
And the positioning of the bodies also ties into the idea of crowds, surrounding larger than
Yeah, hey, everyone rest easy on this video, right?
life government officials and religious figures as well, as the idea of crowd mentality is critiqued heavily in his work, where those in large groups stare vacantly forward or gnash their teeth in joyous anger. Here, a large group, probably representing death, wearing helmets block the way forward on a path, and here, a great head devours the masses. And on the religious side, a massive being hovers over the earth, with the symbol of religion in its front pocket.
Whoa.
A cardinal appears with a diseased, rotting face. Graves litter the yard of Notre Dame, and many, many crosses rise up out of the destruction of war. But there are just as many paintings that don't
I need to see these works up close. I need to see these in an exhibition. I really want to see these in person.
have as overt of a possible meaning behind them, which is why I say that it's difficult to lump all of his output into one definite thesis, just in the same way that it would be difficult to place the entirety of a man's life into one neat sentence. Life is messy
And there he is, just casually painting corpses and popes rotting and hordes of dead bodies. No big deal, just Beksiński chilling.
and just because he witnessed the horrors of human rights violations as a youth, doesn't
Facts.
mean that makes up everything about him as a person. And there are many paintings like these that hum with mystery to me, and that is one of the things that I appreciate most about him, is that you can think you almost have him pinned down as an artist, and then you'll discover, for instance, that he created a set of sadistic erotic drawings that surprises you because they are totally unlike anything else that he ever worked on. The 1990s are personally my least favorite era of Beksiński's art, but I don't blame him for this. As with many creative people at the time, he became enamored with the new possibilities that digital art offered, and for a while he returned to photography, using new programs such as Photoshop to manipulate his photographs, as well as those taken by others, to create new
Oh no, Beksiński became a Photoshop artist? Kind of losing your cred, bro.
images out of them. He said in this time that there's a certain refreshment of mind in this work, the view from a totally different perspective than at painting. Playing with these programs, I can create artificial reality at any angle and figuratively photograph it, which would be the final result of creation. But the artificial reality of these works that he created in this time,
Yeah, these photos hit different.
to me, are not on the same level as what would have come before, in my opinion. They definitely come from the same mind and the same perspective, but these feel less raw to me, less visceral
Yeah.
or emotional. I enjoy him revisiting imagery
There
from
we
earlier
go.
in his
There we
career
go.
that he developed during the Fantastic period, such as doing this digital work of Notre Dame. But I do feel like a lot of fine artists, as well as comic artists, were held back in this era by trying to embrace new technologies before
You know what? Maybe there were some downsides of the advent of technology and art programs. You know, maybe Andy Warhol made it work with his pop art, but for Beksiński, I don't know.
they were perfected. And I think that Beksiński realized this as well eventually, as he became frustrated with digital art and abandoned it by the 2000s and would return to painting.
Thank God. Yo, this is kind of crazy. This is all pretty recent. In the 2000s, like 20 years ago, Beksiński was painting this stuff.
But unfortunately, this would not last for long, as on the 21st of February 2005, he entered an argument with a man named Robert, the son of his housekeeper, who wanted to borrow the equivalent of about $100. Beksiński refused, the argument became heated, and the two entered into an altercation, and Robert stabbed Beksiński 17 times, killing him.
What?
Robbing him not only of his life, but the world also of more Beksiński pain.
Time out. His maid's son killed him because he wanted to borrow money from him, and Beksiński said no, so he stabbed him in the chest 17 times. In a weird way, I kind of feel like Beksiński had to go out in a weird way. Like, I kind of feel like he had to go out in a gruesome way. Like, for all these paintings, like, he kind of had to go out like that. Like, it kind of makes sense, but at the same time, it's totally fucked. Hold up, let's go back. I want to hear that again.
As on the 21st of February 2005, he entered an argument
2005. Yo, we were almost all of us were alive for that. It's crazy.
with a man named Robert, the son of his housekeeper, who wanted to borrow the equivalent of about $100. Beksiński refused, the argument became heated, and the two entered into an altercation, and Robert stabbed Beksiński 17 times, killing him. Robbing him not only of his life, but the world also of more Beksiński paintings. That year, Burning Man would display a red cross in the shape of a T in his honor. And soon after, the city of Sanok would open a museum dedicated to his work in a local castle that is still open to this day. Beksiński is undeniably the symbol of the birth of modern Polish art, but I also believe that he stands as a symbol of a reaction.
Love how it's described as a man named Robert. Right? Some dude named Robert wanted to borrow $100 and killed him over it. That's some weird petty stuff. That's so petty.
From a perspective that lived through it and saw it unfold as it all horribly happened. Through war, through travesty, through occupation and totalitarianism. He took these things in and held on to them, before I think they exploded into a pure, emotional, visceral reaction at the horrors of life. And the artistic vantage point that provides emotional information about this time is invaluable.
They're just gonna drop me off like that? The art world is crazy, and I'm here to tell you about it. So guys, please tune in to the live stream every Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, for sure. There's definitely some days in between there, but every Sunday we definitely try and do an art-related stream and look at some stuff that won't help you sleep at night. So yeah, see you then.